If you're waiting for the perfect time to buy a short-term rental in Gatlinburg, well, you're already falling behind. The investors that are truly successful here invest with a plan. They're not the investors that are waiting for the market to feel safe. In this video, we're going to show you exactly what we've learned after 10 years of investing in the Smokies, including costly operational mistakes like picking the wrong cleaners, the wrong vendors, and doing the wrong pricing. We're also going to go over why timing isn't really everything, and it's not truly the only secret to success.
Hey, we are Kelli and Mark Brewer. We are EXP agents, superhosts, and Airbnb enthusiasts. And we've been investing here in the Gatlinburg, Smoky Mountain region for quite a long time now. In fact, we've been coming here, at least I have, for close to 40 years. So we're intimately familiar with the area, and we want to share part of our journey with you and what has been good, bad, what we've learned from, and what we continue to learn and refine.
So you're never going to perfectly time the market. Everyone always asks, is this the right time to buy? Has the market reached the bottom yet? Do you think that the interest rates are going to go down a bit? Should we wait till the fall? Honestly, we don't have a crystal ball. So the right time to buy is when you are actually ready. When the right time to buy is when you see that right property where the numbers make sense, where it fits into your 3 to 5 year plan. And of course, we'll try to get a great deal for you guys. Right now, we've been seeing a lot of seller credits, and we've been able to negotiate price drops, but who knows how long that's going to last.
The one I had to learn early on is this is a revenue producing asset. You have to think of it that way. All right. It's not your personal home. It's something you're investing in. While you do own it, this is something that you are hopefully getting into because you want to earn income. With that, you got to understand it's going to get wear and tear. Things are going to happen. People are probably not going to treat it quite as nicely as you would. If you're doing this to get a vacation home, maybe think about just getting a vacation home if you can afford that. But if you want somebody else to pay the note, pay the bills, and put cash in your pocket, you've got to be able to disassociate with it a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to be just like me when I bought my very first one and walked in after 3 months of running it and saw that there were things damaged, broken, and missing, and literally just about burned the place to the ground. I was so mad. And then I started to realize I hadn't paid a note and there was thousands of extra dollars in my bank account that hadn't been there before. So make sure you are able to take on that mindset of this is a business, not my personal vacation home. You can use it, you can take it off the market, and you should enjoy it, but treat it like a business.
Another question we get about investing in the Smokies is, what does occupancy look like? What are the busy months? What are the slow months? And so it kind of goes up and down, and I'll take you through a 12-month calendar of what that looks like. So January is going to be one of your slower months. We always tell everyone, if you're going to do any renovations on the property or any refresh, then January would be a great month to do that. You can kind of close the property down for a couple of weeks and get any maintenance items done that you've been needing to do. You will get some weekends in January, but it's going to be a little few and far between, and that's probably going to be one of your slower months. February, you'll get Valentine's Day and also some weekends as well. I will say that the city of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, they do a great job on putting on events and festivals during the slower season. So there always will be a need or a reason for people to come during these slower months, but that is going to be the time when you have your most vacancies. Of course, March, you're going to start getting your spring breakers, especially the end of March is going to be a pretty good month. April always seems to be pretty good. It's Easter and you're getting the seasons changing, things are blooming. So April, you'll be able to get quite a few people in the door. Beginning of May will be slow because kids are still in school. And then at the end of May, you're going to start getting a lot of occupancy, and you can raise your rates a bit as well because everyone's starting to get out for summer, and you're going to get families that are going to want to come at the beginning of summer for their summer break. June and July, brace yourselves. You're going to be really occupied, and it's just going to be probably turn after turn. And those are going to be some of the higher months and higher rates that you're going to get. Beginning of August, same thing. It's just like summer season. End of August is when the kids are going to go back to school. So you are still going to get people, but it's not going to be as busy. September's a little slow. And then October is a very good month because it is beautiful here in the Smokies. You're going to get all of the leaves changing. And I would say that you could also charge higher prices in October as well. Beginning of November is a little slow, but then of course after that you're going to get into the holiday season. Thanksgiving is a big deal here in the Smokies, so you're going to get some really good reservations for Thanksgiving. Beginning of December, a little slow, but then you get into Christmas and that's going to be some of your higher rates. That the last 2 weeks of December and then leading up into New Year's is really good as well. So my suggestion on how do you prepare for the ups and downs of the seasonality is to absolutely make sure that you have some reserves. So during those high months like June and July, make sure that you're putting some of that money into savings so you can pay for the lower months like January and February. So Mark and I have been owning short-term rentals for well over 5 years now, and we have experienced all kinds of things. And one thing that we had to learn the hard way is that you need to have quite a few vendors. I'm not talking about just rely on that one plumber or that one cleaning service. You need to have a Rolodex of a handful of plumbers, a handful of AC people. Because imagine when you're on vacation and you have guests, or if you're renting a home and all of a sudden the AC goes out, you want that fixed immediately. And so as a host, you're going to need to be able to get a hold of a couple of different AC companies and go with the one that can go out the soonest to fix your guest issues. So that's one thing Mark and I can help you with. We help our clients with is when you buy a short-term rental from us, we also have a vendor list that we share with you. And these are people that are tried and true because believe me, Mark and I have gone through quite a bit of them. And we will give you access to our vendor list when you buy with us. So it is so important to have those layers of support, especially if you're going to manage this from afar. And the neat thing about all of the vendors here in the Smokies is they're used to dealing with owners that may not necessarily be here. So they're used to dealing with people that live far away.
Critical lesson. Pay attention here. Your cleaners are incredibly important. They may be the second most important part of the equation behind the home itself. Now, that being said, you're going to develop personal relationships. Even if you use a business, you start to develop personal relationships with the owners of that business. When performance starts to suffer, you have to be ready to pull the ripcord. Great cleaners are an incredible asset, but they may not be great cleaners long term. People change, they try and grow and expand their business and dilute their abilities. Sometimes their personal situations change and it distracts them from what they need to be doing. Work hard to maintain a really good relationship with your cleaners, but as soon as you start to get consistent signs that they're not at the level that they need to be, you're going to have to be able to get out of that situation and move into another. And that speaks to the importance of also always having backups in place. Things are going to happen. We've had cleaners who had a terrible tragedy in the family right during one of the busiest times of the year. We needed to let them do what they needed to, grieve the loss of a loved one, and bring someone else in. We didn't have a backup in place. Not only would it have been a terrible time for everyone, especially them, but it would have meaningfully affected our business. So always have backups in place and be ready to move someone from AAA ball to the pros at a moment's notice.
Another huge element that we have learned about owning these short-term rentals ourselves is that photos are everything. Please do not cheap out on the photos. Another perk about using Mark and I to buy a short-term rental in the area is that we also have a list of some really great photographers that we have personally used ourselves. And it's much different if you're going to get a photographer to film to your short-term rental as opposed to just, like a house that you're selling and you're going to put on the MLS. These photographers need to know what is appealing to the guest. They need to take pictures of all of your guest amenities. They need to probably open up the kitchen cabinets as well, and take pictures of what's inside there so guests can plan what kind of dishes you have or what's available to them when they do book that huge Thanksgiving reservation. And that way it also eliminates a lot of questions that they may have for you in advance. The more that you can photograph of your property, the more that they can visualize themselves staying in there. Disclaimer, a lot of these photographers are going to be very expensive. You will have some sticker shock But if you think about it, those pictures are going to last you for years and years, and you're going to make that money back twofold if you spend on a very good photographer. They will also come and do twilight pictures, or they will do sunrise pictures. And a pro tip, something that Mark and I do as well, is we get them to come back and take seasonal pictures, because your property may look differently in the winter when it's snowing, or in particularly when the leaves are changing in the fall. If you have a great view, then you're going to want people to see what your property looks like with all of those golden leaves and all of the changes. It absolutely makes a difference on how people book your place.
If you've been doing research into the STR market, then you probably know something about this next lesson. That is, understand pricing in the market. We're not talking about when you're buying and selling a home, but how you are pricing things nightly. Know the seasonality. Know what's going on in your general market. Know what's going on in your sub-market. Look at what the other comparable properties around you are doing. You can make mistakes in both directions. I've seen properties that were underpriced. And when they're underpriced, they're booking up way too far in advance because they're not getting the prices that they should. At the same time, if you're not paying attention to pricing, you're going to leave it too high. When you leave that pricing too high, guess what? You're not going to get the bookings, and then you're going to be scrambling at the last second to try and fill up your calendar. And that's lost revenue. So you've got to strike the balance in between the two. Look into dynamic pricing software packages. Make sure that you're willing to spend that extra little bit a month to utilize it, but understand how it works. Get in there, train on these things, and make sure that you've got a really good understanding of how to manage that. If you're going to have somebody else manage for you, talk to them. Talk to them about why they're pricing things a specific way. Understand what their thoughts are behind how you price, when you price, and how you change. Hold them responsible if you're going to pay them money. At the same time, know what's going on and be an influence. It's important. Revenue management is critical to having a successful STR.
So another thing that Mark and I have learned through the years of being actual hosts, and also one thing that we always tell our clients too, is you need to advertise for the holidays early. A pro tip is whenever you walk into, Michael's or the grocery store or the mall, if all of the stores are starting to advertise for Halloween and, it's whatever, August, and you're like, why are they putting out all of these Halloween decorations right now? We're a couple of months out. Well, that's your tip to go ahead and swap out your photos and advertise your holidays. So we like to advertise Christmas quite a few months early, because we like to get that big holiday, that big booking booked in advance. So that means that if you have Christmas photos, go ahead and swap those out right now on Airbnb. So guests that are looking for Christmas and looking to book early, that's your property is going to catch their eye, and it's going to stand out over other properties that just have their summer pictures out.
All right, here we go. This is a tough one. You just bought this brand new place in the mountains. It's awesome. It does really well for the first year or two. Now you're 24 months in, and it feels like you're losing some of your bookings. And so you look at the other properties out there and realize, man, people have this cool new thing. Oh my God, people are building out whole theater rooms. Oh my God, I'm gonna need a outdoor sauna because that's the hot new thing. Think and pay attention to what's going on before you make big, impactful investments in your property. Remember, it's a business and you're trying to capitalize it correctly. Even brand new properties eventually are no longer brand new. At the same time, you don't necessarily want to put something in that's going to cost you $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, and then it's kind of obsolete, or it has a high chance of being broken or needing constant repair and maintenance. It's not a good investment. So be very careful about what you think about reinvesting in. What I'll tell you is you want the core fundamentals to be really, really good. You want people to have entertainment options at your house, but you want to make sure that they're reliable and work. I will take something that is always functioning and enjoyable over something novel any day of the week, because I don't have to worry about a guest coming back to me and saying, we were really looking forward to your golf simulator and it didn't work. I'd rather them just have an 80-inch TV and a sound bar, pick the things that make a difference and are going to make a difference for every guest. Be careful about what you reinvest in.
Here in Gatlinburg and here in Pigeon Forge, we are a very competitive short-term rental market. Gone are the days where you could just throw something up on the internet and have mediocre pictures and grandma's furniture and you're just going to book like crazy. Unfortunately, that has passed. So you need to go a little bit more above and beyond. You need to make sure that you have a lot of the basic comforts for the guest as well. We provide things like a high chair and a pack and play, because a lot of our guests are families and they don't want to be loading the car with those huge items that are going to take up space. We make sure that we have extra linens for people. Think about it. If you're going on a vacation, you're renting a house with your family, you're probably going to cook. So we make sure that we have a set of great steak knives, or that our pots aren't like full of scratches. You're going to have to constantly update things in your kitchen, especially that are going to get used a lot. We try and do new sets of pots every year and a half, whatever. We also provide noisemakers. So just in case, if it's kind of a noisy house, we want to make sure that our guests have a good night's sleep, because if you have a good night's sleep, then you're probably going to wake up refreshed and you're going to have a better experience. Once the basics are covered, then you really need to think about like, what kind of guest are you hosting? And honestly, here in the Smokies, it's going to be all different types of guests. So you're going to need to provide amenities for all different types of guests to have a comfortable stay.
All right, here's a fun one. As much as I'd love to tell you that every person who rents your short-term rental is going to love it and treat you well, you're going to get bad guests. And those bad guests are probably going to leave bad reviews. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll leave a great review, but just abuse your property. Fact of the matter is, it's going to happen. You're going to need to be very, very thoughtful about how you handle this, because the impression that you leave can get replicated online, and then you get a reputation. So you don't want that to be the case. At the same time, you need to stand up for your property, but there are ways to do that. Understand what the rules are. Document, document, document. When you have situations where you have damage or they have abused your rules in some way, shape, or form, first of all, evaluate. Did it really have a financial impact to me? If they were just really messy and they checked out late and dragged their tail on getting on the road, but it didn't cost you your next reservation, it didn't incur additional cleaning fees, then maybe you just let it go. If it's something where it's going to have financial or operational repercussions for you, that becomes a tougher situation. And those are on a case-by-case basis. You really have to judge that. I would tell you most of the time you need to try and stick with your rules, but you need to understand if the guest who just stayed at your place for 7 nights at the peak of the season, paying max rates, get $150 worth of damage accidentally, and they were paying you $800 a night, you may just want to eat that. It's not worth getting a bad review over it because you wanted to recover $150 when you just got paid out $4,000. Again, you're going to have bad guests. It happens to everyone. Be prepared for it, try to be unemotional about it, and do what makes the most sense for your business. Remember, it's a business and that's your business reputation.
Now, as much as we try to give guests a great stay and as much as we strive and work for those 5-star reviews, I'm going to tell you something. Bad reviews are going to happen. And when you get that first bad review, it's really like a knife to the heart, because you've worked so hard to make this property exactly what you thought everyone would love and enjoy. Just like in life, you're just not going to satisfy everyone. So how do we deal with bad reviews? 1, you take a minute to get disappointed, and then you quickly move on and you think about your action plan. There's a couple of ways that you can tackle a bad review. One way is we actually like to call the guest directly and just talk to them. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Please tell me about your bad experience. How can we make that better for you? They just want to be validated. And a lot of times we can get them to call Airbnb directly and get that review removed. That is a pro tip. It is a lot easier if you can get your guests to call Airbnb directly and have them remove it instead of trying to prove to Airbnb why that review needs to be removed. Because Airbnb, and it's getting harder and harder to do this, will not remove a review unless it is very, very clear that it has violated their review policies. Another good thing is they will actually Airbnb will let you respond to the bad reviews. And that is so important because as a guest, if you're scrolling on Airbnb and you find a property that has a lot of great reviews, you're going to read them, but you're really going to pay attention to that bad review. And how you respond as a host is everything. So you need to keep it professional, you need to keep it factual, and you also need to address whatever the guest had an issue with and say, we have fixed this problem. So moving forward, any guest that books that property knows that that issue has been fixed, and you're a very attentive host.
All right, so you just bought a short-term rental in the Great Smoky Mountains. Who's staying at your place? Well, quite honestly, you may have people literally from all over the world. This is one of the best things about this area. It is so unique. We get visitors from tons of different areas. It is one of the easiest places to get to from multiple states across the U.S. that I highly suggest if you're actually in Gatlinburg, stop by, check out the pin maps over at the Salt and Pepper Shaker Museum. A friend of ours in Cobbly Knob, their family actually owns that, and they put these boards out and then offer people pins to show where they came from on their vacation. And they've been doing it for years. It will really give you some perspective on how broad the data set of people that show up in the Smokies are. Not to mention, it's a really cool museum. I've never seen so many novel salt and pepper shakers in my entire life. So pick up a special set to take home with you too.
So Mark and I get asked a lot from clients that are looking to invest in the area, but may not necessarily have even been to the area. Why do guests come here? What's the attraction? Why would people rent a property in the Smoky Mountains? And there are a lot of different answers for that. One, let's start with the national park. There are so many hikes and different family activities in the Smoky Mountains National Park that you can do. That is probably the number one attraction. However, we do have Dollywood as well, which is one of the top theme parks in America. There's a lot of things like Anakisa, which has zip lining and restaurants and tree walks. There is a lot of different things for your guests to do. And the cool thing is that each guest can have a different vacation. You might have that one guest that is interested in purely hiking and taking in all of the beautiful scenery and all of the beautiful nature. Great. Your cabin's going to check that box. You might have another guest that is bringing a family and they have a lot of young kids or they have teenagers and all they want to do is go to mountain coasters, go to dinner shows. Check. Your cabin's going to check that box as well. So that's the beautiful thing about hosting here in the Smokies. You're going to host all sorts of different people.
When I first started vacationing in the Smokies with my parents almost 40 years ago, you found out about cabins from other friends who'd been up there. There were big name management companies and you'd call and ask about a place. You might see it on one vacation and try to book it for the next. Now we've got online platforms and marketing is everything in this game. Your ratings, your presentation make a difference. And the fact of the matter is, the different OTA platforms like Airbnb and VRBO have algorithms. Where you show up, how you show up, who you show up to. So be active. The more that you are out there constantly refreshing, making sure that you're putting your best foot forward for your property, that's what's going to get you more bookings. So build in a regimen. It doesn't have to take a ton of time, but make sure that you're active in managing your online platforms. You can even use AI these days to help you decide on how best to market your property for your given market. So spend some time reading up and practicing. When you build it into a good routine, you'll find that it doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it certainly enhances what you're going to make with your short-term rental.
Let's talk about guest communication. And this is also something that Mark and I coach our clients on all of the time. It is so important that you communicate with your guests even before they enter your property. So that way you're already starting that relationship and they feel like they know you. And that's going to lead to more 5-star reviews. One thing that we do is we make sure that we have a thank you so much for booking message. We also do another message right before they come to our property. We do a check-in message. And this one's very important. You want to check in with them on mid-stay because sometimes a guest might not say anything and something might be bothering them. And you have the opportunity to go ahead and fix that issue for them while they are in the property. And I have found that that mid-stay message will prompt something for a guest to tell you, and you can get the issue fixed, resulting in a 5-star review or resulting in them feeling like, wow, these hosts actually really do care about us and they care about how our stay is going. We also do a checkout message because a lot of guests like very clear instructions on what they need to do and how they need to leave the property before they check out. And then this one is incredibly important. We give them a review message a day or two after they check out of the property. And it's generally something like, hey, thank you so much for staying and for being a wonderful guest. We just gave you a 5-star review. We would love for you to give us a 5-star review as well. So you are essentially telling them, please leave me a 5-star review because I just gave you a 5-star review too. And it also prompts guests to actually review you because, believe it or not, some of them just leave and they never review you. And it's important to stack up those really good reviews for future bookings.
Okay, as I said earlier, when I first started coming out here, the max amount of technology that was involved in the VRBO business or the Airbnb business was how you got your keys. And it was probably a late night lockbox if you showed up after 6 p.m. when their office closed. Now, we're using all kinds of technology. So it's incredibly important to leverage your technology stack. Make sure that you understand the platforms, the programs, the different software options out there that can enhance what you're doing. Know what software you're going to be using to help with your cleaners. Maybe you're on Turno. Maybe you're using a management platform that integrates everything. Are you going to use Beyond Pricing? Are you going to use AirDNA? All of these are different programs with different usages. Understand what's available to you out there, which ones are going to be priced and effective for what you're trying to do with the size of your portfolio, and then learn them. Take the little online courses, get into Facebook groups where people will share information about how they have optimized. It's really important that you know how to leverage that technology stack because it will make your life a lot easier. The more you can automate, the less time you actually have to spend running the day-to-day of your business. As I said before, you're going to get all kinds of guests, and from time to time you get a bad one. But sometimes it's not that people are bad guests. You're just getting different guests who value different things. Clearly they saw some value or they probably wouldn't have booked your property. But what someone sees your property being for them might be very different from what it is for someone else. You may have young couples. You may have big families. You may have older folks coming to your property. Take care of your guests as best you can in the fashion that they need to be taken care of. I'm not suggesting that you have to try and optimize every situation for every single guest. Think about the different people who are going to be staying with you and try to do your best to cater to them in a way that makes it an enjoyable experience for them. Treat people who need special treatment as best you can. They may be a little bit fussy, they may be a little bit tough, but at the same time, if they are paying, they're paying for an experience. So treat your guests according to their needs as best you can.
So when investing in the Smoky Mountains, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, what are some things that you may be overlooking that are very important when you're choosing a property? One is, what does the road look like? We have a lot of gorgeous views here, and to get to those views, you actually have to drive up a mountain. So what does the drive look like? Are your guests going to be scared? What does parking look like? If you sleep 12, does your property have enough parking for probably 6 vehicles? Is the parking flat? Is it easily accessible? Speaking of roads, maybe the cabin is off of a private road. It's not on a county road. So who takes care of that road? Whose responsibility is that? Is there an HOA where you're going to be charged for road maintenance? What happens when we have a snowstorm, and who puts salt on those roads? Is your guest going to be stuck in the cabin because they can't get out due to it being snowing? Is the cabin on a well? And what does that well look like? Is the well going to be able to produce enough water for 12 people that are staying in your home all at one time? What does the water pressure look like? These are all things that Mark and I can test for you in advance, especially during inspection time or while you're looking for a property. We spend a lot of our days just doing property walkthroughs for people, and we will do commentary on the videos. So that's another reason why you want an agent that's very, very familiar with the area, but also an agent like Mark and I that are property owners. And we will walk through from an owner perspective and from a guest perspective and give you comments on what we like about the property and what we don't like about the property. Another huge thing to look out for when shopping for a property is, what are the insurance costs? That's actually a pro of investing in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. The property insurance and the property taxes, for that matter, are not that expensive. However, the property insurance has gone up just like everywhere in the last couple of years. It's not going to be as expensive as buying a property on the coast, but different types of properties will have different insurance rates. For instance, we always tell our clients, if you're buying a true log cabin, then the insurance on that log cabin is going to be more expensive because it's more of a fire risk, which is not really that big of a deal, but it is something for you to go ahead and get quoted on for your insurance agent to see how much that insurance is going to be on that property.
Okay, truth is, I'm getting to this one a little late. This probably should have been earlier on in the lineup. If you are thinking about investing, especially in the Smokies, understand you cannot just have an STR anywhere. And even if you can, there may be specific rules that apply depending upon whether you're in the county, in Gatlinburg proper. There are slightly different rules. There are zoning regulations. Make sure you understand those. Go out, do the research, access the resources. If you need help trying to find that stuff, drop us a comment. I'm in STR. We'll help point you in the right direction for where you can go get some of those resources. But it is really important that you do the research and make sure that you are good to go. The last thing you want to do is buy a home and then find out that it is no longer going to be permissible as a short-term rental in the area. That is a huge mistake and you will lose a lot on it. So pay attention, do your research, check the boxes, make sure you're ready to go.
So as realtors here in the Smokies, one thing that Mark and I talk about, especially during our first consultation with our clients, is how to finance these cabins. And there are a couple of different ways that you can finance them. One, you can obviously go with a conventional loan if you can qualify for that. A conventional loan will qualify you off of your income, off of your credit score. Mark and I are not loan officers. We do have a list of preferred loan officers that are very familiar with this area, and they do loans in this area all day long. And that's part of a perk of working with us. We will give you our lender list, and they are all fantastic. We do suggest that you shop around because each lender will have a little bit different in closing costs and prices, things like that. So you can do a conventional loan. You can do a second home loan, which is a vacation loan. That is also falls under the conventional loan type, which will have cheaper closing costs and a little bit better of interest rate. A lot of our investors use commercial financing, and that usually comes into effect in the way of a DSCR loan. That is a commercial loan that qualifies the property and it does not qualify your income. So basically what the underwriters want to see with those types of loans are, will the property income cover the mortgage? And if it does, then it will qualify for a DSCR loan. This area, and particularly Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, is one of the #1 places that DSCR loans and properties for DSCR loans qualify, because 9 times out of 10, the income that you're going to make off of that cabin will more than cover the mortgage. With that, since it is a commercial product, comes a higher interest rate and you're going to have higher closing costs. But it does not qualify your income. It only qualifies the property. So a lot of investors like to use that product. And another advantage while we're talking about financing to buying these cabins are tax breaks. We have enjoyed a lot of tax breaks because of having these cabins. And I'm going to let Mark tell you more about the tax breaks.
All right, as Kelli said, there are tax implications for owning a business like this. You're going to pay some associated with the business, but more importantly, and a lot of investors who are playing this game understand that there are significant tax breaks associated with operating STR. If you're documenting it and you understand what you're doing, remember, it's not just, I buy an STR, I get a tax break. It is really important that if you're going to do this full force, you need to probably have an accountant or at least consult with an accountant. Understand the rules, how they pertain to your particular tax situation. If you're not doing that, you're potentially leaving money on the table. Or worse yet, you're making the assumption that you're going to get a tax break only to find out later that you're not, or it's not as impactful as you thought. This is all part of the planning phase, and you really need to dig in, make sure you're using good professional advisors who understand how this is going to affect your particular situation. Don't ask your real estate agent to tell you what it's going to do. Don't ask anybody else, your loan guy, anything else. Ask your accountant. If you don't have one, I really suggest that you get one, or at least find someone you can turn to for advice. Use the professionals that are associated with a particular profession for the advice that you're going to get. We are here to help you find the right property and make sure that you get set up correctly, but we are not accountants. We know a little bit, but we have accountants of our own, and we turn to them for professional advice. Make sure that you do the same.
So you're like, okay, Kelli, I think I want to buy one of these cabins. I'm interested. How much money do I actually need to start to get into this market and to buy one of these cabins? So first off, we need to start with your down payment. You need at least 15 to 20% of the purchase price of the property for a down payment. That's pretty standard across the board. Are there specialized programs where you might not need as much? Sure. And if you would like more information about that, go ahead and comment STR for Mark and I to give you more information about maybe some special programs, but you do have to qualify for that if you're going to do a lower down payment of 15 or 20%. Beyond that, you're going to have your closing cost. You're going to have your loan cost, your title cost. So that might be an extra 2% or so of the purchase price of the property. And then the next are very property specific. So you may be lucky enough where you're going to buy a turnkey property and you can close on it that day and then host someone that very next day and not have to do a thing to the property. Of course, like anything, if you're buying turnkey, then you're going to pay for turnkey. If you're going to buy a property that might need a little bit of work, which is what Mark and I have done for all three of the properties that we own, then you're going to have to budget some money for renovations and for outfitting that property. Most of the cabins here in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, they do come fully furnished. But again, that's going to be up to you whether you decide to keep the furniture that it comes with. Sometimes the furniture is really great and not that old. Sometimes you're getting grandma's furniture from the 1980s that people have smoked on and sat on, and you're really not going to want to use that furniture to host guests. So that's going to be very property specific. The next thing is reserves. Please have cash reserves because you never know what's going to happen. You could go through a slow season. You could go through something where, you might have to replace the AC or a major appliance, or you get a plumbing issue in your property. My suggestion is to make sure that you have a good 6 months of reserves so that you can truly enjoy this investment and not be stressing out that something's going to happen and it's just going to completely take all of your cash to fix the property. Another important thing to take into consideration if you are going to buy a property here in Gatlinburg or in Pigeon Forge is please use a realtor that specializes in short-term rentals. It is a completely different ballgame than just buying your own personal home. There's so many other things to take into consideration when buying a short-term rental that your realtor should actually know about and guide you through the process. Another thing bonus, if the realtor actually is an investor as well and owns property in the area. I can say for Mark and myself, we actually own 3 short-term rentals here in Gatlinburg. So we are owners and we are realtors in the area. So we check both of those boxes and we'll guide you through. We are very familiar with the permitting process here, with all of the different vendors here, what guests are going to want, what guests are going to like from an investor standpoint. Also, what you need to take into consideration with that property. How much maintenance is this property going to take? All kinds of things that you need, and you need a local expert to think about for you and to kind of teach you and guide you and say, yeah, I think this property is actually really good, or this property you might want to steer clear of for all of these reasons. So what Mark and I really love and specialize in is really helping people find that great investment, but also that home that you can come and make a lot of family memories at as well when you come and vacation.
All right, hopefully we've run through a bunch of things here that you find really helpful. Again, if there's a topic that we didn't cover or you're ready to start that journey, reach out to us. You can drop a comment and STR down at the bottom. You can download our investing guide via the QR code, or you can just shoot us a text. Go ahead and we'll send you a link and you can get on our Calendly and we'll set up a meeting. We'd love to talk to you about it. In the end, this is a really rewarding opportunity for people if they are paying attention and they're coming in prepared. You need to be involved. You can still have someone manage for you. They're going to take a cut of your revenue and your returns are not going to be as high. But at the same time, you can pass on some of that responsibility. There are ways to play the game. Know what it is you're trying to accomplish and what you're willing to sacrifice to accomplish that, and use advisors across the board, especially real estate agents that know what they're doing. Call us. This is what we do. We're happy to help, and we look forward to talking to you.